welcome to another Friday news lunch from the Bucks County Beacon. I'm Kevin Mahoney, and once again, here with Emily Smith. Say hi, Emily. Emily, of course, is the owner and publisher of the Beacon. We're going to serve up this week's top stories affecting our community and the nation, and maybe take a little peek and see what's happening behind the scenes of the Beacon, because there's never enough to do. All right, we hope you'll join us live every Friday at noon on YouTube and, that's right, TikTok. Yes, check us out on TikTok, everybody. Join the conversation and bring some friends along, too. You can join our live chat during the show. We'll probably put your little chats up on the screen, so come on and join in. Look, we're going to need independent, community-supported progressive media in the weeks, months, and years ahead. It's not a better time to take a minute. Head on over to the buckscountybeacon.com and click on the Support the Beacon button. Become a supporter. You can become a monthly entry-level supporter for as little as $1 a month. $1 a month! Or jump right in as a regular supporter for $5 a month, a yearly supporter for as little as $50 a year. Or you can drop a one-time donation to keep the Beacon's critical lens focused and sustainable. Just go to buckscountybeacon.com, click on the Support the Beacon button, and become a supporter today. What's happening around town this week? Well, CPAC, that's the Conservative Political Action Conference, held its first meeting in Poland ahead of that country's presidential runoff. And the conservative candidate is backed by Donald Trump, and Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security, you know, Ice Barbie, Kristi Noem, was on hand to try to influence Poland's election. In openly backing the right-wing Karol Nawrocki, from the Law and Justice Party, Noem said, quote, "If you elect a leader that will work with President Donald Trump, the Polish people have a strong ally that will ensure you will be able to fight off enemies that do not share your values." And she also kind of disparaged the other candidate. So there you go, election interference 101, everybody. And yet another sign of the end times. Turns out Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again Commission, the one that claims to draw on only gold standard science, well, it's producing reports filled with errors ranging from misstated conclusions to citing sources that just don't exist. Just don't exist. You can check out the full article in NOTUS and then ask yourself, did AI write Kennedy's reports? I don't know. And good old little Marco, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, announced this week that the U.S. will start to, quote, aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students, who are the second largest group of international students after students from India. That means about 277,000 Chinese students have been put in a state of crisis at the end of the academic year. Nothing but caring, joy, empathy at work here. And on Wednesday, a U.S. trade court ruled that Trump had exceeded his authority as president in enacting sweeping tariffs without the approval of Congress. Duh. The ruling would put an end to all of Trump's tariffs if upheld on appeal. Cue the White House attacks on judges and aggrieved crocodile tears. New reporting in the New York Times reveals that Elon Musk was doing a whole lot of drugs while helping Trump get elected. According to the Times, quote, Musk's drug consumption went well beyond occasional use. He told people that he was taking so much ketamine, a powerful anesthetic, that it was affecting his bladder. That's right. No wonder he looks so bloated. He was also taking ecstasy and psychedelic mushrooms and Adderall all at the same time. That revelation comes ahead of Trump's planned Goodbye Elon press conference. Look forward to that one. Nothing but love. New study finds that PFAS, those nasty forever chemicals, are turning up in high levels in, wait for it, beer. Yes, all but one craft, major domestic or international beers tested showed contamination. Where does that come from? Is it from those nasty beer makers? No, it's from our water. Don't you love it? Yes, they cross-check the levels in the beer with the county water supplies and find out that, yes, especially in the U.S., we are completely contaminated with PFAS. Ironically, the ones with the lowest levels or zero were ones that were not from the U.S., like Mexico had no PFAS in their beer. How about that? 11 counties and 5 cities in Pennsylvania made it onto Trump's sanctuary jurisdiction list. That list was called for in his Protecting American Communities from Criminal Aliens executive order. And that order says that these jurisdictions are deliberately and shamefully obstructing the enforcement of federal immigration laws, endangering American communities. And we'll have the list for you. Good news, Fred Herron is doing like great work by keeping Bucks County off the list. Yeah, there you go. Cue in the, oh wait, are those Israeli soldiers coming to train my sheriff? Maybe. Oh, what we got going on the Beacon? Once again, a whole lot. Peter Green unpacks the Republican House budget bill, you know, the big, beautiful bill, and how it attacks public education, especially through private voucher scheme. Not only do the private vouchers going to potentially undermine public education, but it turns out it's also a tax loophole for the rich. Oh, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Yeah, that's a shocker. Melinda Rizzo reports on Centennial School District's bizarre and concerning decision to hire controversial former Central Bucks superintendent Abram Lukabal as the district's top administrator in a 5-4 vote. Yeah, no concerns there. No concerns there. There's a lot of people upset about that one. Writing for the Beacon, Evian Casey.
I think they call her Evie.
Evie Casey writes about her family trip to Park City to see the premiere of the documentary Bucks County, USA. That was about the political divides in Casey's Central Bucks School District, and as a way to try to understand what's actually happening in Bucks County that's leading to such this divisiveness in school boards and around the region. And low voter turnout in PA's primary election this year is raising some concerns in the region. That's according to reporting by Aidan Tiksinski, and This Week in the Beacon. Philadelphia saw only a 17% voter turnout. Bucks County saw 25.8%. Montgomery County 21.9%. Lauren Christella from the Committee of 70, that is a Philly-based election watchdog and good government group, said this means that, quote, too many of our neighbors are feeling disengaged, disillusioned, or disconnected from the electoral process. I have to say that is an ongoing theme, I believe. Emily, that is only a small little smattering of what's going on. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy the sun is finally shining.
Whew, tell me about it. Holy
and it's
cow.
more than 60 degrees because it's been cold and rainy, and I didn't know what month we were in because I thought we were in May.
Yeah, it's got me dragging. I'm telling you, it
Oh
really
my
has
God.
been. I don't. Do you have the flood warnings for tonight?
No,
Yeah, we do.
not that I know
So
of.
it's coming back tonight. We're expected. There could be periods of rain 1 to 3 inches an hour overnight. So.
Oh, all I know is that the high school graduation is tomorrow, and my daughter's playing in the band. And
Woohoo!
they told us it was supposed to be at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. or 10 a.m. on Sunday, depending on the weather. I'm like, oh, cool! I can really schedule my day.
You just show up and sit in your car and just
Right.
and wait for the word. Wait for go time.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a short break in the clouds, everybody. So everybody rush out into the bleachers, and we're gonna get these kids out of here.
I did get a follow-up email this morning. They're going for it at 10 a.m. tomorrow. They're going for it. And they said bring umbrellas, ponchos and towels for the bleachers.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
But next week, hot, right? Hot and sunny,
I
right?
guess. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Summer is here next week because school's over. So
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to actually being able to spend some time outside. I actually got one good garden day in, which I was really pleased about, to actually finally do some like just edging and planting of stuff that needed to get planted. And
Yeah. I
that
have
felt
not
good.
gotten that day in.
Yeah, I got one.
Every
day
time
in.
I have a moment, it's pouring down rain, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had
Yeah.
that. I guess it was the kind of harmonic convergence that got me about 4 hours of time to go out and do the garden, which was great.
Nice.
So crazy.
Nice.
Well, this week's been kind of a crazy year. I know I was alerted first of that CPAC conference in Poland from the Beacon, actually, because the Beacon had the AP report. The first time that CPAC was being held in Poland, and it's right before a presidential runoff election. And it was for the administration that cries at the top of his lungs. I mean, how many hypocrisies can we possibly put in a bag? I don't know.
Yeah.
But they always claim about election interference. Here you have Kristi Noem heading over there, and other members of the Trump administration actively disparaging kind of more centrist candidate, and going all in behind the kind of far right candidate, and basically saying, "Hey, Poland, do you want our help in the future? You want to be on our good
Right.
side, or are you going to cause us
Right.
some problems?" I mean, that's really what the
They're
message
like,
was.
we're working on authoritarian regimes. Would you like to participate?
Yes. Would you like to be in the club, or would you like to be like a victim of the club?
Right.
We could send
Also, do
some.
you have any money for us?
Yeah, yeah.
Specifically for me,
And
Donald
if you need
Trump.
some time to think about it, we can send over our friends over there. Maybe they could convince you a little bit, if you didn't like those
Right.
kneecaps, you know. Like,
Right. Oh my
but
gosh. Speaking of Trump and corruption,
yeah, please.
did you see Will Bunch's column this morning?
No, I did not.
It's like it's all of the like money that um all of the money that Trump shouldn't be getting personally that is going to him in alphabetical order. It's this huge long list, like, the airplane, the, crypto, like Trump crypto, like this, like it's a huge list. So everyone go check out Will Bunch's column in the Inquirer. It's interesting.
Yeah, Will Bunch
Like,
is
not
on
that we
it.
didn't know, but like it's
No,
nice to
but
see a list.
well, that's just it. I mean, seeing the list is just a kind of a really concrete way of kind of reminding just like how crazy it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I find myself all the time, I was talking to somebody the other day and then just saying it's weird to be in that constant state of everything is just like completely opposite of the way it like quote unquote what normal is supposed to be. And yet we
Upside down
still,
world.
yeah, and yet we still have our lives, right? And so it's this bizarre constant sense of, okay, and this is not new. People have been talking about this for a while. And I was just rereading. Masha Gessen had another piece this week, and she's written like I think it was, I don't know, it was either New York Magazine, New Yorker that she writes in, but again talking about the experience under authoritarian regimes, about how that state of being is that's a characteristic of it. It's just this feeling of like there's two worlds happening at the same time. You know,
Right. And it's exhausting, which is probably why no one voted in the primary.
Yeah, I think so. It was interesting that piece from the Committee of 70. It was interesting. It was an interesting read in a lot of ways because part of me is sitting. Well, a lot of these elections there were not like contested elections.
But Philly,
But
this
Philly's
is their
different.
main this is their main thing because they're all they're mostly
Exactly.
all Democrats, right? So
Yeah.
like those were the actual choices, and there won't be in the general.
Right.
So 17% is ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like, so on the one hand, we look at the Bucks County turnout, about just over 25% kind of
Yeah.
turnout. At least in a lot, in a lot of jurisdictions, there wasn't kind of like heavily contested primaries. There were
Yeah.
some, right? But there were,
Yeah.
it wasn't heavily, at least in my area, we didn't have a lot of those. Matter of fact, we had a couple write-in campaigns because, we talked about this last week, just because there was no one else running on one of the party's tickets.
Yep.
And I could understand while that's not going to produce turnout. And I don't also think that this can speak to what turnout's going to be in the fall. But the Philly case is the one where that's problematic, because you're talking
Yeah.
about the Democratic Party is everything. That's basically the election.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea that there are people getting elected or reelected with less than 20% of the electorate, even if it's, I mean, Philly's what? I think it's 80% registered Democrats, something like that. It's in
Something
that
like that.
range. So that means it's just crazy to me. It's crazy to me that that's the case, you know.
Well, and I think, I mean, it does speak to, I think, that broader concern too. I mean, that was what was interesting about, about that piece is also, pointing to the fact that people are kind of disillusioned and disaffected and keeping them kind of away from the polls. I mean, I think that is one aspect of, you know, well, I said the concern is that's going to carry over into the next kind of couple rounds of elections unless we're going to see some real, some candidates that are out there fighting for things or kind of speaking the language that is going to speak to people's actual needs, and not just by, ramping up fears and kind of hatred of immigrants and all sorts of racism and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's hope for better turnout in the fall.
Yeah.
There usually is, but it's a municipal year, so who knows?
Yep.
I mean, it was very obvious to me that voter turnout was low this primary when I was there. It was very low.
Yeah, we were literally looking around at each other like, holy cow. I mean, this is like, we
Yeah.
go through, a period of like half an hour, 45 minutes, and nobody's coming in.
Yeah.
And then you get a little
Yeah.
trickle and things like, but it was,
When the people that make decisions about your local government only had to receive, 250 votes, like that's what's crazy to me.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see where that goes. What happens.
Yeah.
I was struck by the story about RFK, like RFK Jr. stuff, and his I mean his tenure in what it's how limited it's been thus far as a, the lead kind of medical officer right in the country is just is horrific. I mean, for this guy who were criticizing him as kind of being an advocate of conspiracy theories and things like this, that alone should have disqualified him for the job. But now to be in there and just basically literally just shopping misinformation, telling people that he's not cutting anything from kind of medical programs or kind of medical insurance or anything like this, while he's turning around and firing half the staff. And now it comes out that this report from his kind of gold standard commission is basically just writing nonsense, and then is now going to enter into the record. I mean, that's literally from, you actually go to their reports, you can see it online. This is what they are advocating for, and they've got reports with citations that don't exist. And that article from NOTUS that I made reference to is they contacted several of the authors of the articles that were cited that the journalist couldn't find. And they contacted him and say, hey, just want to say, do this is an article that's cited in this report, can we talk about that? And this one woman was saying like, hey, well, I do stuff on infectious diseases, this is the kind of stuff I work on, but I have never worked with those people or authored that piece. I mean, that's how blatant it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of smart people working under RFK Jr., but I don't think they get to have their hands on anything.
Right. That's exactly it. I mean, the people who are the civil servants, that are the employed scientists, the people that are doing the work at the NIH and things like this, absolutely. The CDC, absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
but they've been, I mean, one, you had the order early on that they're not allowed to kind of talk to the public directly. They're no
Yeah.
longer, everything has to be go through these political channels. So even health has now become politicized. I mean, we've seen it politicized, specifically between COVID and
For
afterwards.
at least 5 years now.
Right. Well, exactly. And now, but now we're talking about it directly from, the federal government in a much more systematic way, that we've seen. At least I've seen before. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, measles.
Yep.
I, you know, I, I mean, all we can do is cross our fingers and hope that, bureaucracy moves slowly enough that this doesn't, you know,
I think
affect
that's really
things
what it
too
is.
badly.
Yeah, I think that's really what it is. And, I mean, some of the challenge, I think some of the most devastating parts was the measles outbreak. I remember reading these couple stories after there was, a couple kids who died in Texas. There was an interview, I want to say it was in the Houston Chronicle, but something like some Texas paper, and they were interviewing the parents, and the parents were like, well, it was God's will. And I'm just like, this is your freaking kid.
Yeah.
And but that shows you the other angle of the problem, right? I mean, the fact that,
Yeah.
okay, well, no, we didn't give the shot because this is, we've been watching all this right wing news and we've been watching all these people saying that we have to be concerned about it. And then when there's a direct consequence, instead of it being retribution or anger at those people that lied to you, it's like, oh, well, I guess that's God's will. I mean, that's one hell of a, you know, environment, right? Ideological environment where you've got, God is your excuse and the liars go free. But
Yeah. I mean, I think there's already enough problems with um, people being scared of healthcare.
yeah,
During the pandemic, I worked for a PR company, and our clients were like nonprofits and similar. And some of it was, one of them was a healthcare worker union. And there was these two ladies who were, they called themselves the Black Doctors, and they were sister Black doctors who went around trying to educate, the Black and brown population because they're scared
yep,
of doctors anyways.
yep,
Like there are so many different cultural groups who have reason to be afraid of the medical establishment. So when you then add the guy on top saying dumb things and sowing lies, it's so bad, right? Because there's already such a high bar to cross to get people to accept um doctors and their expertise and how they can help them and have better healthcare outcomes. So that, I think, for me, that's the most disappointing part.
yeah. And once again, we see, disproportionate impact on those folks that are already, disenfranchised by that system or have,
Right.
like you saying, have legitimate, concerns. I mean, whether it's what the, I think about those reports. I had a student who wrote about this last year, just talking about the, you know, the outcomes for, say, African American women, right, are so
Yeah.
significantly lower, and the assumptions being made by the medical community about like everything from like the level of pain that they can tolerate, or when it's an actual medical issue, or whether they're just complaining. I mean, all these things about, that systemic racism that is kind of built baked into our system,
Yeah.
finding that,
Right.
and so those are the very people that know they're not being treated right, and now you have these folks coming on and kind of putting a stamp of approval saying, yeah, you're right, because these people are out to get you, so go,
Right.
go have
Yeah.
some herbs.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. There's sickle cell disease is like more prominent in Black communities, um, and they have a lot of pain when they have those attacks. But then they go to the hospital, and the hospital doesn't believe them when they say they need pain meds. They're like, "Oh, you're a drug addict." Like,
Exactly.
that's the worst. Like, can you imagine being in excruciating pain and feeling like your body is breaking from the inside, and someone says, "You must be a drug addict"? I cannot imagine.
Crazy.
Um, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. Go back and listen to that podcast where I interviewed my friend Shamita.
Yeah, it was excellent. I
Yeah,
mean, it was just
yeah,
absolutely excellent.
and read her book.
Yep, you can check that out. You go over to kind of like, that was for the special, a special episode of The Signal. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts, or the Bucks County Beacon, The Signal. Do check it out.
Yeah,
We also, I should have plugged this in the show too as well. We also had a new episode of The Signal drop this week. Um,
excellent.
yeah, just a great discussion. Um, so do go check it out. If you're not already subscribed to The Signal, make sure that you do it wherever you get your podcast. This just breaking, actually. I just thought I'd throw this in. Just from NBC News, Supreme Court allows Trump to revoke the temporary legal status of 500,000 immigrants from four countries. So it is basically, that is Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. There we have it. I think I mentioned on the show one of the weeks is that, we're seeing again this quiet exodus from nursing homes, from immigrants who work in nursing homes, I happen to know people that work in some nursing homes. They're saying, yeah, we have a bunch of folks from Haiti, from Nicaragua who've been working here, that they fled corruption, violence, and disaster in Haiti. That's why they were here on temporary protected status. These are folks that went into communities, kind of built local businesses, are working, taking care of people
taking
in our communities.
taking care of our parents and grandparents. Yeah.
Yep, and they
Yeah.
left. It was well before this, but this is what they saw coming. Right?
Yeah.
They kind of like basically went, okay, crap, we're going to be targeted now. And then here we have it. Supreme Court gives a stamp of approval on this kind of immigration. So, or
Yeah. I, my family came across from Europe through Ellis Island in the early 1900s. We are a land of immigrants.
yep,
That's what's so crazy about this. Like, I I would have some kind of, understanding if, say, Trump was Native American and he was like, we're taking our country back. But that's not the case.
right.
He's not.
He's definitely not. He's definitely not. He's definitely not.
I would get behind someone who was talking about taking back tribal lands, to be actually owned by the natives of our country,
Right.
but we're all immigrants here, you know.
Yeah, and that's the trick, right? The trick is on the one hand we've got other than folks who were here first, right? They're all or who were slaves, right? So it's like either and I think this, you have the folks, the initial kind of like clearing of kind of native peoples from kind of the conquering of this continent. Then after that, we had the two folds of immigration and slavery, right?
Yeah.
And those two things about that story and the narrative of going to kind of flee persecution to kind of start this kind of like new things, build a new life, that American dream stuff, and at the same time baked in white supremacy, right, around slavery. Those two
Right.
things have been in constant conflict with each other.
Yeah.
And it brings about the kind of at least logical hypocrisy, right? Like we're an age of immigrants and you're kicking all these folks out. And that's one hell of a pendulum, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I have no words.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know.
Like,
I know what you're saying.
it's rough. It's not what our country's foundation is.
No, and that's one of the things that I hope everybody, if you can make it out to one of the No Kings protests that will be happening on June 14th, you can go to nokings.org. I know Upper Bucks United is hosting one in Quakertown once again, right in the triangle in the center of Quakertown. And I know Philadelphia is planning on having a kind of a big turnout for that. The more we can kind of, get in spaces where we can kind of work and talk with each other right around these issues, the better. I mean, I know some people have a question, say, okay, how effective is it to show up and protest and order and protest there. And I really think it depends in part about how you're thinking about that. If you're thinking about you're going to show up and protest and suddenly the Trump administration is going to kind of like do a 180 and kind of revoke all this stuff. It's not going to happen. I mean, really, one of the main reasons of being out there is basically saying, no, we're not going quietly into the night, so to speak.
Right.
And we are there to be with each other, right? To strengthen those practices, those democratic practices, to make sure that we're there. And this is a perfect example. I mean, you have, you know, 500,000 people. I mean, 500,000 people going to have their visas just kind of revoked and kind of sent back into brutal, violent, kind of countries. And then you've got, Rubio coming out like just a couple days ago or yesterday, even a couple days ago, saying they're going to start aggressively revoking visas of Chinese students as part of this ongoing tit for tat with China, and that's another
Right.
277,000 Chinese students.
Yeah. Well, they have their numbers that they're trying to get of kicking people out
Yep,
that aren't white, right?
yep, exactly.
So, you start with the easy ones, right? Like this is what they're doing. They're like, well, I can get this huge bundle, right, without having to have ICE agents for it.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. And then it's just about the numbers, right? Then you could just say, and then because they've already established the narrative, right? The narrative's already
yeah,
established these are violent criminals, right? Or they're
right.
people that have broken the law when
Not college students
not
at
college. Right,
Harvard.
exactly. Well, they're spies, don't you see? They're
Yeah,
all spies, right? So
right.
they are. I mean, this is the claim. I mean, Rubio, the stuff that was coming out of that dude's mouth is unbelievable, right? I mean, it's not unbelievable, but it's. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, to say that that there was one story of one Chinese student that was coming back after a vacation, after a break, and coming back home, coming back to the U.S. to continue studies from China, was held for like 2 hours or 2 days or something like this, and in a detention, and questioned, and basically then told no, he was spying for the Chinese government and handing over secrets, and then sent back sent back home and not allowed in the country. I mean, this is like, I mean, it's I mean, this,
Right.
and there's like you could like hear it, and they didn't have a picture of him, but they had, the discussion. You could like hear it in the words, like just absolutely baffled.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you had these, discussions of this. I mean, this is a little side note, but just, had discussions from scholars and people from China said, look, you can understand young people in China, right? They're super pragmatic, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have yes, you have the kind of government and you have those ideological party people, but the vast majority of people in China are like about getting degrees, kind of bettering, like same kind of things that we talk about like in our country here. And
Yeah.
this is, one of the ways of doing it. We're just going to lock that up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
Um,
So
yeah. Okay. What's next?
well, I do think the fun story for the week was that I mean, like, this is not even news for anybody who's paying any attention, but the fact that we have proof that Elon Musk was doing a bunch of drugs
Yeah.
is
I love that. I love that. I mean,
yeah,
that's quite the cocktail.
yeah, yeah,
I guess it
100%.
I guess it made it easier to spend all that money during during the campaign.
Well, I mean,
He's like, it's not real anyways.
well, there were these
I'm
times
already
too.
on Mars.
No, exactly. Like I listened to like the Majority Report,
Mm.
and great show. And they've been, been talking about this like for years. Like, if you just look at the guy, anybody who knows somebody else who's kind of like has done mushrooms and does too many drugs like that, but just like this, and they were like literally at one point, I'm like, here you go, this is him on mushrooms, right? You see like staring off into the distance, seeing like
Right?
who the hell knows what. And then, oh,
Right.
now here's him on Adderall, right? You can see because the behavior is so, you can see what the behavior's like.
Yeah.
And I just think the fact that he told people that he was taking so much ketamine that he couldn't pee, right? I mean, just like, you gotta be kidding me. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my
Yeah.
God.
It's, ketamine's funny, right? Because it's like people take it, and there is a therapeutic use for
Yes.
ketamine now, which I think is fascinating. Um, I've never done ketamine myself, but I did know some people in college that did it, and you fall into what they call K holes, right?
This is all news to me. I'm riveted.
You become like a tiny speck within yourself and the universe. That's you fall deep inside, and nothing exists around you, except everything exists around you, and you just don't even feel like you exist. That's what ketamine does to you, which is
Wow.
crazy. So depending on the level at which you do it, there are people that use it therapeutically for anxiety, depression, PTSD, various things like that. But that one's the crazy one, because then he's probably doing that and then taking Adderall,
To get himself back out, right?
like layering on top of each other. Yeah, it's
That's just,
crazy.
yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, it's like, and there's according to the New York Times article to this as well, most of this they were referring primarily to the time before he became the Doge King, and the lead up to this. And so, but now there's questions about, okay, what was he taking while he was wreaking
Dojing.
havoc in the government. Yeah, and what were all his pals there doing? I mean, too as well. So
Cocktail
cocktail
isn't
isn't even
even
the
the
word. That's right,
word.
Amy. That is absolutely, absolutely. I was a little disappointed though to find out that beer is now just another source of PFAS. So that was a bummer.
I mean, you had to know.
You had to
You
know.
had to you had to intrinsically know because PFAS is in everything, right?
Right, right.
It's in our water, it's in our soil, it's literally everywhere. So
So the worst part of the study though, this is the worst part of the study for me. For me is like they're saying that, well, they were in high levels in these beers, right? And primarily that came from, they said they weren't able to do it for every single one of them, but for all the ones that they could, they just cross-referenced with the county water supply. Wherever they're getting the water
yeah,
supply from, they tested that water too as well. So they're trying to
yeah,
figure out not just if it's there, or but where it's coming from. Right. Because
right.
theoretically there could be stuff that's showing up in grains and things like this, but the vast majority of stuff was from the water.
Yeah,
And so they said, because the way that it's manufactured, it's in more concentrated levels, right? They said,
yeah.
however, big asterisks, don't worry too much. You can still have your beer because, right? Yes, that's true. That might be in slightly high, more concentrated levels in beer. However, most people are getting much more PFAS from their water because they drink
Right.
more of it. So you can have your beer, right? It's the
Right.
water that's the problem, right?
Right.
I'm like, oh my
Right.
god.
Yeah, it's not great. Yeah.
No, it's just not great.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm surprised though that like the beer companies can't, I mean, can't you reverse osmosis those chemicals out at all?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. I would think they would have a pretty hardcore filtration process.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's what it was. Some of the researchers, it was surprising to them, and I think it's one of the reasons why they were doing it in beer, right? Because
Yeah.
they were trying to figure out. Part of the question was how where how like resilient are these chemicals in these different processes. Like, it's one thing we're talking about with water, right?
Yeah.
Especially that's coming from groundwater and that here. So what happens when you're putting, like, I'd be curious to see what happens in distilleries, right? Because that's yet a
Me
different kind
too.
of.
That's what I was just thinking about. Like,
Yeah, I mean, and I think that was kind of what they did with the beer. Well, let's take some other kind of common things. And what was interesting though, as a way of pointing it out, was uh, number one, it didn't matter the size of the brewery. So it wasn't about just industrial production, because they found it both in everything from craft beers to, small breweries up until kind of like, like Budweiser. I don't know if that's
right.
Budweiser was one of them, but one of the big national ones. The big factor was it made in the United States or not?
Yeah.
Was the deciding factor. And some of the ones, there was one that I guess it was the Cape Fear Brewing Company, down in North Carolina, had the highest levels of all the ones that they tested.
Oh, that's good
Be-
to know.
yeah, because there's a chemical plant that was near that used to be in that area, and that
I
is,
am taking that off my list.
yeah,
I
do
have
it.
had Cape Fear beers before.
I have to, right? I have to, and I
I know.
feel
I'm
more
like, what do I
stretchy.
drink now? Is it juice?
Oh, cold pressed, man, cold pressed
Cold
juice.
pressed juice is like it, but it can't be like green juice because like the lettuces, they get all of the chemicals.
That is true. That is
They're too
true.
much in the dirt.
Well,
You need like a stone fruit juice.
yeah. Well, I'll give the full plug to the folks up here at So Fresh So Green Cafe here in Percy. They do a whole bunch of cold pressed juices like every day. I know Adrian posts like videos on the Instagram once every time they're doing a new juicing, so you can actually see the fruits that are being juiced like on the
Yeah.
Instagram. They always have a fresh supply within there. So if you're looking for cold pressed juices, right here in Percy, corner market and 6th, so 7th.
Yeah. Well, and then I was thinking, well, if it wasn't in this, if you didn't grow the food in the soil, maybe that would help. But then I'm like, no, because then it's in water.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Uh,
So I mean, but if there's a way of filtering the water, who knows? I mean, I don't know. And I started thinking about this afterwards. Was, yeah, because so is like distilled water. Will that going to get rid of those chemicals, or is it in such fine particulate matter that it's actually going to still make, I don't know. I just don't know the answer to those questions.
what if we get Fiji water.
Yeah, well, then you're just gonna have to deal with the microplastics coming from the bottle. Then,
Right? They haven't yet turned into forever chemicals.
right? Exactly,
They're still
exactly.
in a
No,
solution,
no,
a
no. Then you just have to deal with
suspension
all
of
your
microplastic.
pseudoestrogens and kind of like problems with fertility later down the road. That's all.
Oh God.
It's all
Okay.
good. Yeah. Well, this just came out too as well that there was news about this too. Once again, this is connected with the immigration stuff about the list of sanctuary municipalities or whatever that the Trump administration is on now. And it turns out that so basically what they're doing is the executive order said everyone's harming it. They're keeping all these criminals and they're just talking about immigrants. That's all they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so part of the executive order said there must be a list put together about those ones that are in quote unquote violation or running against kind of U.S. immigration law. And so the basically who are not basically openly cooperating with ICE by going out and seeking kind of like who might be an immigrant or handing over information to ICE. And this varies by municipality, but in Pennsylvania, so I was like, oh, curious. I'm gonna go see if they have it. Yep, they have it broken down by state. And in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania, here are the violating counties. It's Adams County, Allegheny County, Center County, Chester County, Clarion County, Dauphin County, Delaware County, Lehigh County, Montgomery County, Montour County, and Northampton County. Those are
Mm.
the and I'll put the link in the show notes too, so everybody wants to go in.
Bad counties.
Yes, and the cities, right? The bad cities: Gettysburg,
Yeah.
Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, State College, and York. There you have it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's why I thought that Cyril's podcast this week was so interesting because they were talking about the whole 287G thing, which
yep,
obviously we've been covering extensively because of Sheriff Fred. We should just start calling him Sheriff Fred.
Sheriff Fred
Give him the
Flintstone.
Sheriff Joe.
Flintstone. Can we say Flintstone too?
Yeah. um
Yabba dabba do. Let's
I
put that like note all over him. It's like for the
yeah,
memes. Yabba dabba do.
yeah, but I would do. The part I thought was interesting was where they said the Trump administration and Tom Homan, um, they're actually saying like you have to you as a county sheriff's office, like they're saying this all across the country, you should be participating or else. That means
Yep.
that you don't want to help us. And it's not just a mutual aid agreement. I think that's the thing that's the part that people don't understand. Those agreements are already set up.
Hmm.
Help other law enforcement,
Right.
but this is like the next level beyond that. So I thought that was fascinating. Like we've been talking about it in our own local municipality. Um, we haven't been contacted. Our local municipal police have not been contacted by anyone telling us to get a task force thing or participate with ICE or anything. But we have like lawyers looking to make sure that no one's bothering us and what we can say if they come to us. But I was interested to find out that Cumberland County is not on that list.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, shoot, I got to go look at the Cumberland County sheriffs.
Well, and some of it has to do with, I mean, it's the way that I think some of it is the way that they're filtering, like, so for example, in Bucks County, I mean, one of it could be because Fred Herron has applied to, be like mini ICE here in Bucks County. But I also think that it may be those counties that have laws that require like the county commissioners, for example, to
Yeah.
approve any of those agreements. So I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, so I was trying to figure out what,
But that's
how
state law.
is that state law? County
Hmm.
commissioners have to do that?
Yeah. Go
Oh, so
listen to
that
the
doesn't explain it
podcast
then.
again. Yeah. So it's state law that says who makes that decision, whether it's the county commissioners or the sheriffs themselves,
Okay.
and what their latitudes are. Um, so in the case of Pennsylvania, it's always the county commissioners are deciding. That's the
Huh.
key.
So then that's not the issue. Then it must be some kind of who they're reaching out to. I tend like I think that because these folks are so politically oriented, that they're looking
Hmm.
for any way to target what they see as potential kind of like electoral losses, or as kind of resistant. They're looking for ways of undermining any of those. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't. I mean, I look at Clarion County. I mean, Clarion County is not just what you would say like a super progressive, like kind of like
No.
area. However, you do have a university there, right?
Yeah.
And so how does that
Not a super
impact?
progressive university either.
No, no. But who knows? Maybe one person said something about kind of like immigration, and that was it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it just get. I mean, how those determinations were made is gonna be interesting. And I do think it's it's like, okay,
Was was Berks County on the list?
no, Berks County was not on the list.
That's surprising.
Yep,
I feel like they didn't do a very good job making that list.
they didn't work hard enough
No.
to make the list. No.
No. I
Well,
feel
I
like
mean,
they could have put more people on the list.
Berks County does have that immigration detention center, like within Berks County.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't want to they want to make sure that that stays wide open, so they're not concerned, and maybe they'll make the list
Yeah.
if there's any resistance. But I don't know. We shall see. We shall see. So
We shall see.
one thing else to keep an eye on, keep an
Yeah.
eye on there too as well. The other part, just to brief about the podcast, I thought was really interesting too. Is that I thought she made a really interesting point about representation and sheriffs, right? About how every county has one, right?
Yeah.
And some counties have like, a couple hundred people in them. Yeah, I'm
Right.
exaggerating. While other counties have like, a million or hundreds of
Right.
thousands or something like this. And yet
Right.
you have well, so it's like another like out of whack, anti-democratic kind of representation. So makes sense why they would go there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's like sheriffs and DAs are both that way, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so crazy, crazy. So I mean, this stuff. I mean, everybody once again got to head to the Beacon for kind of reporting like we saw this past week. I mean, any of these stories that really kind of stuck out for you this week, Emily?
Yeah. The one that I thought was super interesting was Evie Casey's story about that documentary. So the background is her and her bestie got followed around for a documentary. Um, I don't know like the beginning part of that story, whether it was during the school board wars things, and maybe there was reporters there for all of that. But they found out that Evie's very liberal, and her friend is very comes from a very conservative family. And so the whole story is about them navigating, um, understanding each other through like civil discussions, and educating each other about why they feel the way that they do about different things. So I'm really excited to see the documentary when it comes out somewhere. But it premiered at Sundance, which is very cool. It's
Yeah,
called Bucks County, USA. And Evie's story is literally about going to Sundance and how terrified she was to go, and after the first two episodes aired, having a conversation for the audience, like in front. It was like a Q&A, and having to defend her position, and thinking that people would think she wasn't uh her beliefs weren't she wasn't holding her beliefs dear enough or something, you know what I mean, because she's willing to like be flexible about things. um and so I thought that was really fascinating, but then apparently everyone was just yelling at the right wingers on the stage. Shocker. Because it's Sundance.
because it's Sundance, right? Exactly.
Yeah, but it's nice, and she's a young person. I always love when we have young people come write for us, because I love to give them that opportunity and that space. I mean, not that she's not gonna get known anyways now that she's in a documentary, but you know yeah.
No, and that's the kind of thing you definitely need more of. I mean, to hear those perspectives. I mean, it's funny in one of my classes, my first year writing class, my composition classes, is that one of the things that I've often done. I didn't do this past year, but I'll probably go back to doing it. Is just like look at what other people. I said this for my students, like what other people are saying about you, right?
Yeah.
And then where are you in that conversation, right? And then it's all about speaking from that space, right? In the midst of this, in this milieu, because that's something that takes practice. And so much of the discourse that we have around kind of young folks is just really dismissive and kind of regretful, or how they're not doing X, Y, and Z right, or how they're leading to the fall of the next civilization because of their phones or whatever the hell it might be. But
They didn't make the phones.
right,
We made the
exactly,
phones.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Exactly. I think I am some friends of mine and I at work we're proposing this panel, like, to go for this conference that's coming up next year. And we're looking for potential titles of, we're talking about some classroom stuff, and like my suggestion for one of the titles was like like don't blame Gen Z. They didn't make the world they're living in.
Oh,
It's and so to kind of give the space for those folks, younger folks, to tell their stories, is I think is super important. So
yeah.
it
I
was
do
cool
too.
to see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
cool.
agree.
The other thing that I found, Melissa Rizzo's report on the Centennial School Districts. I mean, people have been covering this, and there's parents groups are forming around the Centennial, and really upset that see Centennial School District hiring Abram Lukabaugh as their next kind of superintendent.
Yeah,
Um,
but he's reformed now, he said.
yeah, he's a different person now.
He's a different person after getting that $700,000.
Yeah, exactly. After he got that great kind of like departing gift, he's a different guy. I mean,
He
Emily, I
screwed it
mean,
up. They gave
don't
him
you
over
believe
$500,000.
exactly? Don't you believe people can change? I
He took
mean,
some time off. He got to reflect,
yeah,
you know. He's taking a
yes.
pay cut, only $275,000 a year.
Yeah, but he did get all the things that he asked for, right? His travel budget for conferences and all his
Yeah.
professional fees taken care of. So that's all good. With no debate or discussion, just like, oh yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah. I it At least the vote was close, you know.
Yes.
that's that's always the way I look at these things. Like if it's not close, like there's a bigger problem at hand.
Yeah.
And when something's clearly probably I mean, obviously he's well educated, he has all of the things, he ran a huge school district, I get that. um but he has enough baggage that one would have hoped that they wouldn't hire him, and I'm happy that it was close. I think that's all you can do.
Well, yeah, and in that piece, right? I mean, what some of the things that parents were bringing up, and that is in the piece kind of said, it wasn't that he just like made some mistakes, right? I mean, he stood by like really problematic decisions that cost the school district millions of dollars in legal fees
Yeah.
because he was backing policies that were blatantly
Yeah.
discriminatory. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
just like, oh, you know what? I probably could have handled that better. I'm willing to be graceful to folks about that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
he dug his heels in on this stuff.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that was concerning. So it's not just like, oh, well, you look at his resume compared to someone else's resume, and they have similar kinds of things. Like, no, no, no. This is not like, we're not divorced from reality here, or
Yeah.
history.
I mean, the combination of his big payout at the end plus the millions in lawsuits, the taxpayer dollars,
Yes.
the amount that they have to raise the taxes to keep up with that is ridiculous. um I mean, obviously there's always things that there is a constant battle that I hate to say it, but there are Republicans whose whole plan is to destroy things through filing lawsuits.
Hmm.
Um, so sometimes they are impossible to avoid even if you try to.
Yep.
Um, and that costs taxpayers dollars. But something like the bathrooms,
Well, that's what I mean. This was crazy in the Pembridge School District, right? They had these kind of discussions, and to see how like these like moms for liberty types just flip things around and want to kind of show equivalency all the time, right? It was a perfect example because I mean, obviously the Beacon knows about this. When you have Darren wrote the piece in the in the Beacon about the lawsuit about the book banning because they were not disclosing things. They were not following basically, Pennsylvania law about being able to disclose things to the public. They were, banning books like
mhm,
independently out of public view, all this kind of stuff. And so
yeah,
Darren eventually sues them, right? So that is a lawsuit. It is a lawsuit because the school board is breaking the law,
right,
right? And they're lying to the public and they're
right,
discriminating against particular kids, right? So that is a filing and that is a lawsuit that is filed like toward the direction of justice,
right,
right?
right,
Whereas a lawsuit or a right to know request and all these kind of things that went into Central Bucks was about the school district, right? The school district imposing discrimination,
yeah,
right? And fighting for discrimination,
yeah,
right? And so, and like, and so, in both of those cases, it's like, yes, there were lawsuits that cost the districts money, but the only
yeah,
reason the district had to pay things is because they were doing things that were discriminatory or illegal,
yeah,
right? That's different than the
yeah,
right wing folks basically filing like basically saying my white kid, right, feels bad because there's black people being treated equally in my school. I mean, that's a different category of things. That's an
yeah,
argument saying we want to sue you so that we want to make you discriminate against people.
right,
I mean, those are
yeah,
different categories. They're not the same,
yeah.
you know?
It's
Oh my
true.
God.
It's true. I mean, I don't know. I Good luck, Abe.
Yeah. Good
If
luck,
if
Abe.
anyone would like to come to the Beacon and report on Centennial School District, let us know.
That would be awesome. I mean, I think I was actually thinking about reaching out because, one of the things that we're gonna be trying to do going forward for the Friday news lunch is having some local folks being interviewed, some of the writers being interviewed. You've heard us talk about this on the show before, so I think fingers crossed if everything can kind of works out. That's what we might be previewing next week. Um, so I'm hoping for that. And I was thinking about, for example, in this story about Centennial School District. Um, we got Nancy Pontius. She's a Warminster resident, parent, educator, and spokesperson for the concerned citizens of Centennial, right? That's a person I want to reach out to, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's an organization because that's going to be an important school district to be paying attention to, right?
absolutely.
And I think the more that, we're up here in Penridge and the Central Bucks and these kind of areas who went through these school board wars, the more that we're starting to reach out and connect with those folks in these other districts, the better. I mean, same thing
Yeah.
over in Souderton. We saw what happened kind of over in Souderton, Telford, and things like this. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
Saturday.
know.
Um, yeah, I mean that's why our intent my intention at the Beacon is to create a network of beacons so that we can watch there's microcosms, right? So but the microcosms show the macro. Um, so watching the different school boards in Bucks, you can see the same stories play out. And literally now, the same guy.
The same guy.
I'm like, we have this character already. This is fine. Um, but then when you look at it in Cumberland County, it's the same thing. There are school districts that are dealing with Moms for Liberty, people running for school board. They have, engaged the Independence Law Center. Um, they are trying to pass bathroom policies and ban books and all of those things. So the more you can show what's happened in other places and what is happening,
Yep.
the more you can see the overall picture.
Yeah, and people are more prepared then, right? Like I say,
Yeah.
like if it hadn't been for a lot of the reporting in the Beacon about like Abe Lukabaugh, right? These
Hmm.
folks in Centennial School District would be less prepared to know who this guy was,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, because it's not like people just like know, like it's not like there's like a roster of superintendents, you know,
Right.
that
Yep.
are like the well-known superintendents, you know, like it's just not like a thing.
Right.
So, um, yeah, it's a playbook, and there is literally a playbook on Heritage Foundation's website that you can download if you would like to start your own Moms for Liberty, whatever. I covered it like 4 years ago.
It's like, there you go. You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, anything else going on at the Beacon, Emily? Anything guys coming up? Things that should be looking out for?
Well, our new intern CJ started this week.
CJ.
She's off to the races. I sent her an entire Google Drive folder for the Beacon. I was like, hey, guess what your first week is? Go familiarize yourself with everything that's in here. So she is working on our upcoming fundraising drive, which we hope to launch on Monday. So stay tuned. We will be asking for money. Please do not unsubscribe from our newsletter just because we asked you for money. We need to raise money. As a for instance, that voter guide took countless hours and I'd say around $2,000 to make. So we we need to recoup some of that money because we can't really afford a lot of the stuff. Um, we need to have a better baseline. CJ was very interested to find out that there were 50,000 readers on the Beacon in the month of April,
Mhm.
and if they all gave $1,
Yep.
we'd be way in the black.
Yep.
We would be expanding. We
Yep.
could cover every school district, you know, if everyone gave $1 a month. Um, so I think that's worth noting. We are going to we're going to be launching a 2 week fund drive. So quick, you know, before you go on vacation, sign up, give us a couple bucks.
100%. And you could do that right now. You can go over to buckscountybeacon.com. You can hit the support the Beacon button. Again, like Emily said, $1 a month. Everyone who read the Beacon gave $1 a month. You're talking about expanding immensely what the Beacon can do in terms of reporting in our communities, right? And strengthening and make this even more sustainable, more impactful, kind of going forward. I mean, that's really the name of the game. And for those of you like, cause look, you're saying, well, like maybe not everybody can afford like $1 a month. Okay, that's right. But can you then afford five?
Right.
Right. I mean, so I mean, that's part of what that looks. The $1 a month is that kind of like, okay, that's the conceptual part of it. But we all know that there's that if there are people that can't afford it, right? Maybe even then what they can do, okay, making sure that those folks are sharing things out. But if you can afford that kind of big, the $5 a month, like member level to $10 a month, like come in at that. I mean, if you think about that compared to like Jeff Bezos' own Washington Post nonsense, right?
Yeah.
This is your money far better spent, right? And
Yeah.
focusing on what's happened right here in Bucks County.
Yeah. And if you have a business or you work for a business that would like to support the Beacon, we are also trying to launch this Bucks Community Business Hub. Um, poor Allie is sending out a million emails and not getting any responses. So respond to the email and come sign up. Right now it's free. We're just trying to create the hub so people know what businesses align with their values. And if you want to advertise with the Beacon, we would love that. We would love that. Um, so reach out more, buckscountybeacon.com/media kit. I don't know. It's advertising. It's something like that. um, yeah, we've got a fresh media kit for the year. Um, check it out. Yeah.
Excellent. So, I mean, like we said, everybody, we're going to need this. We're going to need this independent, community-supported media going forward. Head on over to support the Beacon, or head over to support the Beacon. Head over to buckscountybeacon.com, hit the support the Beacon button, which is my favorite thing to say in the world right now.
Yeah.
And go and look and become a supporter. Become a supporter and kind of like say, okay. And then if you need to say like, well, I don't know if I could do one more thing, go look through your other subscriptions and see what else you actually need. Right.
Yeah.
And see what you're kind of like, the deliverable is there on that end of those things, and say,
Right.
okay, you know what? We're going to transfer money away from, I don't know, some random, like, like TV subscription service that you
Yeah.
haven't watched in a year and a half, and make it to the Beacon.
Netflix is like $16.99 a month without ads. With ads is $7.99 a month. That spread right there is $9
There you go, $9 a month
to watch a couple ads on Netflix.
This could be a Netflix level membership. Start tiering it like this. What does that actually look like? And I always looked at it like, when I was doing stuff just like with solo with Raging Chicken, we used to talk about is like, you think about it like 1 cup of coffee, 1 beer a month.
Yeah.
Right. And think about like that. And that gets you beyond the $1 level, by the way.
Yeah. The latte factor.
The latte factor, right? So you can come in at the latte factor, right? You can come at the free will factor, if you remember Percocet, right? So
oh my god,
free will brewing.
What's that go for? $8-9 bucks.
God, I haven't been there in a while. I have to tell you. I've been trying to kind of keep my PFAS levels down. So I've been like, I've been done nothing but gin. So
right. We have to find out about distilleries now.
Right. But for now, I can put my head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. That's what I'm doing.
Right. I'm drinking cold pressed juice and gin. Right.
There you go.
Sipping on gin and juice. Lay back.
Sounds like there's a cocktail recipe in that. But
there is.
Great. Well, everybody, look, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for kind of taking part of this and making sure that every time you go out, you read something from the Beacon, making sure you're sharing that with your friends, that you're putting out on social media. When you're kind of joining here to kind of be part of our conversations, just let other people know, bring them on over, be part of the discussion. Tell them about the live streams on TikTok. Have them go to the kind of YouTube
subscribe
channel. And subscribe and hit that notification bell when you go to these things. That really matters. I mean, it's a small thing. And this is what I say to everybody. Look, even if you only check out like the YouTube channel kind of once a month or something like that, when you see a show, when you have time, by hitting that subscription, by hitting those notification bells, you're actually helping kind of more people have their eyes on that content. Right. I mean, it is our social media world, and that is how it works. So, I mean, that's the little things that you can do that actually really support making sure the Beacon remains strong and sustainable going forward. So, doing awesome work. So, here we go.
Yeah, we had a comment on our YouTube the other day from someone who happened upon Cyril's new podcast, The Signal, the newest episode. They said the algorithm on YouTube did something right today. And then there was all these comments like, we should really help their channel get going. We have 221 subscribers on YouTube. We want 500. Help us get there.
500, help them get there. I think that's another plan. That's gonna be my goal. I'm gonna see if I can personally kind of get out on the socials and kind of push that to see and then measure my impact. See that?
Yeah.
I'll do my own metric.
I love that.
Was this valuable? we shall find out. So good.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, cool. Well, we got a little bit of sunshine here at least, so maybe we can have maybe some time before the next round of rain. Emily, I hope you have an awesome weekend and get some chance to do things from yourself in the midst of all the work to do.
Thank you, Kevin. I hope you have a great weekend too.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best. I think I'm going to actually get my hands in the dirt for a little bit looking at the weather, so that's pretty good.
Just watch out for the PFAS.
Watch out for the PFAS. Yep. Okay. No PFAS today. That's good. No water. No,
no dirt.
Drink lots of water. Wait a minute. All right, everybody. Hope you have an awesome weekend too as well. This is going to be a here we go. Let's try this one more time. Look, this was not working right. I thought I had it down. See this? The beginning of the show worked my way. The end of the show, I messed it all up. All right, everybody. Have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. Support the Beacon. Do it now. See ya!